It's like looking at Berkshire Hathaway versus the S&P 500. You get the S&P 500 return plus, and that's what we're really trying to do. We want to try to create a return of Bitcoin plus, where the dollar's devaluation, having lost all about 25% of its purchasing power since the pandemic, people feel it. It's real. This industry's no different than any other technology industry. You end up with one or two big winners in each vertical.
Hello, we're live here at the Cointelegraph booth at Bitcoin Vegas, and I'm joined by Sean Bill, the co-founder of Bitcoin Treasury company BSTR. Sean, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Now you co-founded this with Adam Back from Blockstream. Can you tell us what is BSTR and how does it differ from all the other Bitcoin Treasury companies out there?
Yeah, so when Adam and I were originally coming together at Blockstream, our idea was that we wanted to look at trying to use Bitcoin as an actively managed asset. And so we were exploring a lot of different avenues of how we could actually use Bitcoin productively. And we saw, when Michael Saylor did a 0 up 55% convertible note, we're like, wow, this is amazing. And so we thought maybe we need to pivot towards a treasury company, because then you can access the capital markets. And so, what BSTR really brings to the table, I think that's a little different from some of the traditional players in the treasury space, is actively managing the Bitcoin stack. And that's really kind of what we want to do. So we're focused on, covered options writing strategies, basis trading strategies, high frequency trading strategies, inter-exchange arbitrage strategies. We're working on a few other things in the insurance space that we think are really interesting. And so we're just trying to really kind of take it and build like a Berkshire Hathaway 2.0, using Bitcoin as the asset instead of stocks and bonds, and then really try and make that asset productive in the market.
Now, 2025 Bitcoin Treasury company was the phrase that everyone in the industry was throwing around, and then there was also some concerns about it being a bubble as well.
Yes.
What would you say to those people that are saying that?
Well, I think that, I think there will be consolidation in the space. I do think that you have some treasury companies that maybe will, give back the Bitcoin or get consolidated into other companies. I think this industry is no different than any other technology industry. You end up with one or two big winners in each vertical, right? So if you think about search on the internet, it's Google. If you think about retail, it's Amazon. Maybe you have a Shopify in second, right? If you think about social, it's going to be Meta, and then maybe you have Twitter or X in the second place, right? So we think it would be similar to that. We think this is a digital ecosystem, and that it will consolidate into one or two big winners. We expect to be one of them in the U.S. market.
What do you think the Bitcoin Treasury companies that fail, what do you think the main reason is going to be because of that?
Well, I think a lot of them don't have the right capital structure, right? They don't have the ability to actually deploy Bitcoin. They're really planning on having Bitcoin do all the talking for them. And that works to an extent if you have cheap and easy access to leverage in the marketplace. But if you don't, you have to do something that adds value. Otherwise, investors will go to an ETF, and just use a simple product like that. So I think that's what we really are focused on at BSTR, is we want to be, a value add. We want to be adding on top of the Bitcoin return. And so that's what we're really focused on.
And you guys have plans to go public soon as well. Now, the market isn't great for Bitcoin. It's been in a downtrend in 2026. Are you concerned about the state of Bitcoin's price right now and going public?
Yeah, not really. I mean, it actually works to our benefit to have a lower Bitcoin price. So, our team contributed 25,000 Bitcoin to seed the vehicle, and then we actually did the first of its kind Bitcoin in kind equity pipe for another 5,021 Bitcoins from other OGs in the ecosystem. But where we benefit is we have 1.4 billion plus, a little bit over that, but approximately 1.4 billion in fiat that will be converted into Bitcoin. And so that actually works well for us when Bitcoin's down. We would rather have the price of Bitcoin down, put more Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Obviously, we're long-term believers in Bitcoin and expect it to do well over the long haul. So if we can get more balance, increase the balance sheet on a break, we want to do that.
And there was a lot of Bitcoin companies, treasury companies last year that many say we're using it as a bit of a marketing ploy as well to tack on Bitcoin, to, you know, open a treasury company. It's the hot topic. Do you still think that holds up in 2026? Do you still think that it's something they can get away with, or that's past now?
Yeah, I do think that you have a lot of carnival barkers in this space, a lot of promoters, you know, and those will fade to the sides. They will drop off the side. I do think that on the flip side of the coin, every company should have Bitcoin on the balance sheet, in the treasury, as a diversifier. Just like you might have gold or have other foreign currencies. Maybe you have Swiss francs, maybe you have euros, maybe you have dollars, right? You know, I think we'll get to the point where we'll see other companies that will have Bitcoin in the treasury, but they will not necessarily be considered a treasury company. I think that the space for treasury companies will be, you know, dominated by the few players like we were talking earlier. And I really think that from our perspective, we're really trying to build the Berkshire Hathaway 2.0. And we want to be, you know, that company that, you know, really tries to aggressively grow the Bitcoin per share. We're trying to make sure that we stay at a positive MNAV. We want to hit the capital markets. We want to make sure that we're watching our capital structure and managing that efficiently. And then, you know, put that Bitcoin to work in the marketplace.
And when the market is down like this, for somebody that is looking for medium-term returns, would it be better that they buy Bitcoin or invest in a Bitcoin treasury company stock?
Yeah. I think you're always going to be better off if you can invest in a company like BSTR. Yeah, if you look at it's like looking at Berkshire Hathaway versus the S&P 500. You get the S&P 500 return plus, right? And that's what we're really trying to do. We want to try to create a return of Bitcoin plus. And so I think, you know, I think having professional management, we have kind of unparalleled domain expertise within the tech side with Adam Back. We have unparalleled domain expertise on the institutional investment side with my background as a former chief investment officer of a multi-billion-dollar public pension plan. Ran, you know, hedge funds, won CIO magazine's, you know, CIO of the year, won Bloomberg Hedgeweek, you know, multi-strat credit hedge fund of the year 2 years in a row. So I think we bring a very different skill set than our peers, and I think that's what's going to separate us from the pack.
Amazing. Now, just to wrap it up as well, what's your thoughts on Bitcoin right now in the market? Are we going to go back to 100K? What's going on?
Well, you know, so as I mentioned, I kind of, you know, I'm a little biased because we want a little lower Bitcoin price for now to convert our fiat into Bitcoin, because then we would have more Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So I'm a little biased, but take it with a grain of salt. But I would say that right now we're caught in a range trade. I think we'll be probably caught 60,000 on the downside, maybe 65,000. You have the 200-week moving average that comes in right around 60,000, and you have a very strong uptrend line that we held on this last attempt to break it. And then on the upside, you know, we're kind of caught in between the 200 moving averages. So we have the 200-week on the support, and we have the 200-day moving average as resistance above the market, coming in around 85,000. So I think that, you know, you'll probably see the market trade between 65 to 85 and consolidate back and forth for a bit. Maybe I would say it generally will have an upward bias. I think we've seen the bottom in Bitcoin. You know, so I would expect that will generally be trending higher, but I'm hopeful for our situation that we will have an opportunity to buy it on a break.
What major catalysts should Bitcoiners be aware of in the coming months?
Well, I think that, you know, the Clarity Act will be a big one that everybody's very focused on. We're hopeful that that will go through and that the banks will, you know, get out of the way and embrace the Bitcoin and the blockchain. That would be the one that I would say is most important. I think the other thing to watch is watching the strategic reserves. You're probably familiar that gold has now overtaken the US dollar as the most widely held strategic reserve at central banks globally. So I'd watch and see what the central banks are doing in terms of accumulation of Bitcoin. I think that, you know, right now we know there's definitely sovereign entities in the market that are buying Bitcoin. I think, you know, that's probably one of the most powerful flows that we'll see in the future. I think that, you know, with the dollar's devaluation, having lost all about 25% of its purchasing power since the pandemic, people feel it. It's real, right? And so, you know, if you had purchased Bitcoin, you actually gained ground rather than lost ground. And I think that's now becoming much more widely understood.
Thanks so much, Sean. I appreciate your time.
Yep. Enjoy it. Yeah, thank you.